When I watched it the first time, I didn't know gematria at the time. There was just like a lot of things that I didn't know, and I don't even remember if I was filmmaking at the time. And then I watch it again now, and I'm like, man, I have robbed myself from not watching this thing like 10 times.
It's so... I have multiple. Honestly, I think I have 4 versions of this movie. I have a silly enough.
I think they did a remaster of this.
Well, right.
one, didn't
I had
they?
the DVD, like the old paper one, and then I have a steelbook version, and then I have the Blu-ray, and then I also have a digital because who can be bothered to put their Blu-ray in? I mean, really.
Right. Hey, Gretchen.
Hey, Martin. We're back.
We are back with another episode. This one is delayed.
Yeah.
August was a big month for us.
And so was early September. We've been busy.
Yeah, we've been very busy. Do you want to talk about any of the stuff you
Sure.
were busy with?
Oh man, you did way more than I did. I mainly have just been working on. I did one episode of my other show. I have been working on panels for 2 conventions. Well, one's a film festival, one's a convention. So I did Rose City Comic Con panels. I did 4.
Yeah,
and then
that was just this right before this.
It was this past weekend.
Yeah, right before our filming of this.
And then I'm working on my panels for H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival coming
Right.
up.
Yeah, which is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a lot. Because I'm a selection judge for that festival, so it's good to see everything kind of come to fruition. Like, I'm always curious to see what the directors of the festival are going to curate based on how the judges' decisions have come out.
Yeah.
So that'll be super interesting to see.
Yeah.
So again, if my voice is a little tired, sorry. I've done a lot of talking this weekend, a lot of talking.
Yeah. And with HP Lovecraft Film Festival, that's just it's not only films. There's a lot of focus on writers, and there's a lot of small indie book publishers and that kind of thing.
Artists and writers, and there's some vendors, and mainly it is mainly a film festival, but it is also a good focus on, again, like doing writer spotlights. They'll do readings and whatnot, and those are always really cool to catch, as well as being able to go to panels.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of panels do they have there?
Usually just about like niche Lovecraft topics. Like mine, I wrote 2 panels. I'm honestly not sure which panels got in at this point.
Aren't you a shoe-in to any?
I don't know. I wrote one for about filmmaking and Lovecraft's work, like how to translate those kinds of that imagery that's proposed in the writing to films, and how to make that leap without it being cheesy or whatever the case may be. Or if you have to be cheesy, how do you play with that?
Yeah.
And then the other one I proposed was kind of on a similar note, was translating the unnameable or the undescribable or the non-Euclidean to art. And I invited some artists, friends and acquaintances on that panel as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say the unnameable. That was an H.P. Lovecraft story that was made into a film in like the 80s.
Yeah, it wasn't a very good one.
It wasn't very good. That was one of those where, that was in the days, I graduated high school in 89, so that kind of gives you a rough estimate as to where I was in the world. And VHS was a big thing. DVD didn't exist at the time, but, the little stores were there. Blockbuster hadn't even made its way into anything at this point in time. So when we're talking about, because I think that film's like 86.
Yeah, I
80,
think so.
89, somewhere. It's somewhere in there. But I just remember seeing it as a VHS and a cover in the horror section. And it was H.P. Lovecraft's The Unnameable, and it was like, oh man, like I was
so scary.
afraid of that thing just looking at it.
Thing.
Yeah.
So that is the one thing about that always stuck in my head, and I was like, I think that I carried that through my formative years, was that idea that a pane of glass could capture an image of something, like freeze it into the glass. I was like, ooh, I always thought that was a really interesting concept story-wise. Yeah.
And the cover
when the
The cover far exceeded the film.
Right? Wow. That was a lot of those in the 80s like that.
Yeah. It was always disappointing when I finally did see it, and I was like, that wasn't that scary. There wasn't.
Well, I
it's
mean,
kind of a silly
wasn't
creature.
Jeffrey Combs in
and
that one too? Also, I
if
don't
he
remember.
was, it was very
He was a
brief.
minor role.
Yeah,
I think, like one of the younger characters, or like the young, because all college students, right?
Yeah, it's all college students that
Yeah.
go to a house, and the house has some kind of a beast inside of it, and yeah, it ends up being kind of like one of those like high school teenagers, a little bit of boob shots,
Oh, totally.
sex scene, then
everybody
everybody's
gets
dead.
killed because we're having sex.
Right.
How dare?
Right.
Yeah. It's that's not exactly that, but I was kind of like using that as an example for the panel itself. But
Yeah.
honestly, I don't really even know which panels got on yet. But
Yeah.
maybe by the time this airs.
I just diverted us on a little bit there when you said unnameable, because if you don't know it, this is the Check the Gay podcast where Gretchen and I watch a movie and then we go to talk about it, but we never know where the discussion is going to lead to because this
case in
continues to
point.
be very much an unscripted show. So
Yes.
we diverted on this one, but we don't have to divert too much. Well, so what are the dates on H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival?
It is the September 19th through the 21st.
Yeah.
Yes. Coming up soon. This will be out soon, like way before.
This will be super soon because,
be
like
like
we were
this
saying,
weekend.
yeah, hopefully in the next from when we're recording this the next day or two. Today's what, Monday the 5th or something.
Yeah, don't tell us that. Don't tell them that.
Oh, I can cut that out. But yeah, I shot a pilot documentary in Northern Ireland.
Wow.
So I got a very
Your
last
pictures
second.
were pretty cool.
Oh,
on
were
that.
they?
Yeah, that
Man.
looks like some rolling scenic areas.
It's some Northern Ireland's beautiful. I had never
Yeah.
been there before. This was really great. Like this was for the most part kind of a cool win for me because I've never done like an overseas film project where I was purposely selected and then sent out to go and film something. So that felt really good. Spent most of our time in a little town in Northern Ireland called Carrickfergus, which is about a half an hour, 40 minutes outside of Belfast. It was amazing. Met amazing people. I hope it sees the light of day. You just kind of never know with things how stuff works.
Sure.
But it was about a women's football team over there and just kind of how they're climbing the league and they're just like winning left and right. The coach is a former Manchester United coach or a former Manchester United player, like a known commodity
that's
named
cool.
player, and then he quit and became a coach. He's 28 years old and just decided I'm going to go literally to like a bush league place and help people do this because I don't like the corporate thing. I like this thing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's kind of not a rags to riches.
Riches
but
to
like,
rags
yeah,
story.
something.
Yeah.
I mean, but in the vein of like, it sounds incredibly earnest. Like
Yeah,
that
very much so.
His intentions were pure and trying to get this football team off the ground. I mean, were they good?
They were very good. There's some of the best people that I've ever met. Like it was just a fantastic trip. Amazing people. Got to spend time in a castle that was built in the 1500s. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
stuff like that's pretty cool where, part of the tour is, hey, American, we have doors that are older than your nation.
Well, right. And also like the idea of like now, you have that cinematic view of what castles must have looked like.
Yeah.
And then when you actually see a castle, you're like, oh, this is a lot less than I thought it was going to be. Like as far as like
This one was a small castle,
like
yeah.
physicality, like
Yeah.
it's not as gigantic in scope. And then oftentimes it's not as lavish looking. I mean, now admittedly, I know the furniture's not there and whatnot and the
Yeah.
tapestries, but you have to think about how much they had to build those out like inside there to make those comfortable.
Right.
Because I'm sure they're incredibly drafty.
Oh yeah, this one, and they kind of walk you through a lot of that stuff, and they kind of took us to the dungeons and some places like that, which were pretty amazing. But yeah, they're just big drafty rock, rock enclosures.
I bet they're a little more rough looking than we think they were. Like as far as how you have those images of like banners and lavishness, and I'm sure there was some of that. But I think that's probably our interpretation of like drawings or whatever.
Well, there
paintings.
were two rooms that were pretty spectacular. They had the main throne and dining room, which were
Yeah.
all one. That was pretty amazing. And that was almost completely intact from how it had been. They had a recreated table.
Yeah.
And they had a recreated tapestry in there, but they said these are actually based on the real scraps of tapestries that are sitting in a museum over here. So it would have been this big, and these are actual replica panels of what is over here in this tattered, rotten other piece that they don't let in the daylight anymore.
Yeah.
So it was pretty fantastic, things like that. But yeah, those were, because that was the place where the king would hang out, or their main court, those were nicer places. But there were, like stairwells that were literally like 16, 18 inches wide with these big steps, and steps that were offset on purpose. They were like, yeah, the steps are offset because a person is trying to run up these things. And if you're an invader and you're trying to run up the steps and you don't know how they are, and you didn't take off your leg armor, because the people on the inside wouldn't have leg armor on because they're running up and down stairs, or they're standing behind part of a parapet or something like that. So they would have maybe their shoulders or their chest were covered, but their legs weren't. So if you're like trying to stumble up this narrow piece of stairs, they could hit you with an axe and chop you up and leave you to plug up the stairwell. I'm like, this is amazing. So I got to film all of this stuff.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So that's why our episode is delayed.
Didn't you also do some Estee Lauder work? Or is this Estee Lauder?
This was a guy who was a former CEO of Estee Lauder, is one of the owners of the football club.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Wow. Man.
Yeah.
You got some cool projects.
It was pretty cool.
You got cool projects coming up too, though. You got, Seattle again?
Yeah. Well, I just got back from Seattle as well. I was in town for 2 days and then left to go to Seattle and filmed for PAX West, or PAX West. And that was actually for Reed Pop and their Popverse stuff. And then I go to New York Comic Con in October to shoot for Popverse again at New York Comic Con, which is a huge, amazing con. Looks like I don't know. I don't want to say anything. There's some really good
We got some stuff
announcements that are happening there. So that should be pretty cool. And then November, I'm going to PAX Unplugged to film for Popverse again. And then they've already booked me for Emerald City Comic Con and C2E2, which is Chicago. Both of those are in March. So
Fun.
I'll be filming out.
I've never been to Emerald City Comic Con. It seems like a lot.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's definitely my favorite West Coast con. Nothing beats Dragon Con. So I love it. San Diego Comic Con is okay. It's so big and clumsy and it's a tough one. Rose City Comic Con's fun. It has its clunky bits and it's local, so that's always great. But Emerald City Comic Con's really great.
Yeah. Cool. And I heard Dragon Con is always
Dragon Con is.
I'm more of a film festival person. I prefer
I love my film festivals too. Yeah.
Like any horror film festival, please, all about it. But yeah.
I'd love to go to the Toronto International Film Festival. That would be
I'd like to go to SIF or Moonbat or any of you guys.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. SIF, Seattle International Film Festival's become a pretty well-established one.
Dances with Films. I'd like to go to that one.
Yeah.
That one looks really cool. Has a lot of people that we know affiliated with it, filmmakers and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Making our moves, everybody.
For sure. So, but in the meantime, we watched a really amazing film. Would you like to introduce it?
So we watched Aronofsky's film directorial debut, Pi. I picked this movie because I had a tragedy, unfortunately. My closest friend from elementary, high school, or more junior high and high school era, he passed away. And this character really spoke to him. He was a mathematician. And this was a character that was very intrinsically, like, he saw himself in this character as a mathematician. And we had a kind of our conversations were always very mathematical. Like, I would be given a formula to solve. We never really had like a linear conversations as much as we got older, mostly just like a back and forth email chain of formulas and whatnot. Yeah. So I wanted to watch this film in in memory of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So Aronofsky's film debut. This is a stunning film. And so normally I stray away from, especially with doing podcast stuff, is talking about doing black and white films, because I think those are oftentimes like a very like, can be overwrought. But for me, this film is so beautiful. And I say this so much. Wow. I hear myself going, it's so beautiful. So you edit that out.
That's okay. I'm repetitive. Every time you go to, you stop talking and I go to pick up, I'll go, yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think I have tremendous, because I didn't want to do too art housey or whatever, unless it was for a specific reason. But I think this movie has so many great elements of things that we talk about with filmmaking, that especially like just that it's quite a bit grassroots. I mean, it was a Sundance Film Festival winner, and it was an unexpected win, because I watched a commentary discussion about kind of background stuff about the film, and Aronofsky and his crew were not expecting to get the award that they received, and they were very excited. But this film is so earnest and dark and very paranoid. I love it. All right, starting us off though, synopsis-wise, it's about a character named Max, and he is a mathematician who is basically made it his life's work to kind of understand the nature of the stock market in a mathematical algorithm that he can visualize and be able to predict, because there is a divinity. I don't want to go too fast into divinity, but there is a divinity in math that is a unspoken language and an unspoken I hate to say, I'm trying not to sound too rhetorical or too metaphorical or whatever. And it's that he sees a pattern, and he's trying to be able to kind of tap into that pattern and being able to predict outcomes in nature.
Yeah. And not so much in algorithm, but it is looking at numbers and patterns and trying to find the predictability. He's trying to find a predictability in the stock market and thinks that there's something based on that. And it starts, some of his formulation starts around the number pi, but then it starts to branch out, and it really turns into the golden ratio and Fibonacci numbers to try to go out from that. And it's kind of tied into some prior work that his college professor was working on with the same kind of thing. I'm excited to jump into all of this stuff.
Yes.
I'm excited to talk about all the story aspects of this film, because it's a really great film. I'm excited to talk about the technical aspects of them pulling off this film.
Right.
And how I think this actually was kind of the beginning of the end of a way of filmmaking.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Because this is what, 1998?
Yeah, 96, 98, somewhere in there. I think it was 98 when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah, so late 90s. And so that era in general of films is such a funky change, and like there's such a transition between we're going to more digital, we're looking at CGI and whatnot, and we are definitely starting to get away from film as a physical media, unfortunately, like going into more video and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Digital cameras are starting to really happen, but just barely by then. Being in 98, so in 99, when Star Wars 1, The Phantom Menace came out, that was a digitally shot film. And oddly enough, it was shot in 1080p, but because they were breaking up all of the individuals from the green screen, they were able to take like a 1080p person and a 1080p person from two different shots and then put them into what would digitally be sewn together into something that was more of a 4K. So there's all sorts of like weirdness with that. And because all the digital stuff they were doing with the spaceships and all this, you know, all those replacements and the backgrounds and everything were all 4K, you could get away with so much. You know, because even though the cameras couldn't push as much, and you know, your phone now has more pixels on it than what George Lucas had in for episode 1. Yeah.
So wild to think about. I mean, that even like also with like computers as well. It's like, I can't even, my desktop in 1994 had less memory than or 1998 had less memory than my phone does. That's such a weird concept to think about. I remember thinking T1 lines or T3 lines were like, it's the wave of the future. Anyways,
I remember somewhere in like the early 90s, I may have said it on here before, I don't remember, but I remember somewhere around like 92, I was in college, and you know, a bunch of us had the early PCs, and we were like, it's got 1 gigabyte on the Pentium chip. It's amazing. I got Wing Commander 3 and it's 80 megabytes. It's so huge.
Now it's like, my phone is
I've got gifts that are bigger than that.
Right?
Yeah.
My phone has to upgrade. It's like, you need to free up 3 gigs. And I'm like, what?
I have an app that doesn't hardly do anything that takes up more space than the entirety of the Wing Commander series.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Fucking phones. We didn't have that. Is also one of the other things that kind of cracked me up in this. There was they kept picking up landlines, and I was like, wow, what is?
Yeah, there's a lot of landlines in this film, and Well, let's jump into let's tackle the story aspects of this whole thing. This is my second time having watched this film.
I've watched this movie so many times, and every time I see it, I feel like I see something new and go, oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great loves about this kind of filmmaking is that there are some of these sequences that you could look back on and go, oh, yeah, that's right. That's from that. Mm-hmm. And then that is a nod to that. Mm-hmm. And, with that, this film is all over the place with that.
Yeah, but not it. Well, like it's... not all over the place in something that you can't follow. Yeah.
No, honestly, the story premise line is pretty simple. I mean, we have a mathematician who is basically working on trying to understand this algorithm. He kind of falls into this world of a corporation that works for that has a stock market, obviously part of the stock market, and they're looking for. He's got something, he's able to see something, a pattern. And there also are these mystical Hasidic Jews that are also after him. So it's a very simplistic plot wise. Mm-hmm. But it kind of starts off with there is a bright flash of light, and Max is grabbing his head, and there is a beginning narration, and I'll get back to that. And he has these like terrible headaches. And in that he describes like an incident as a child where when he was told he was 6 years old, his mother told him not to look in the sun. And he did. And he looked in the sun for so long that basically his eyes became pinpoints of light until it became darkness. And in that he had an understanding. And then had to wait with the bandages on his eyes until light started creeping back in. Mm-hmm. And he has these rules. One is mathematics is the language of nature. 2, everything around us can be represented and understood through numbers. 3, if you graph the numbers of any system, patterns emerge, and therefore there are patterns everywhere.
I am really fascinated by the people who get into gematria and follow all of the whole idea of the Hebrew language turned into numbers, search through in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible specifically, to look for messages, and then trying to tie that into Fibonacci numbers, correlating that back into the golden ratio, and it's a whole thing where I'm just like, that stuff is so ridiculously silly to me, but I love watching all of those folks just like spin. Because
is that what that's called? I didn't know.
Gematria.
I never heard the word gematria.
Yeah, gematria is the relationship of Hebrew alphabet to numbers, and then finding the patterns within the numbers and putting that applicably into the Hebrew Bible to find hidden messages.
Oh,
and
that's right, because in Foucault's pendulum, they talk about that as one of the aspects of finding the names of God.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things. Like there's ridiculous stuff. I have not read that
Umberto
one.
Eco, Foucault's pendulum, recommend, because it kind of ties into this, honestly.
Oh, yeah. That would be a good read. I'll have to add that one to the list. Yeah. It's and the difficult part of the world of gematria, Christians are way into it. Christians love to be able to, because it's the one thing that they love to be able to go over to the Old Testament in and not read or pay attention to the words of God or the stuff that's written in there. But it's kind of like it's like one of the favorite sharpshooter fallacies, where they basically like shoot the arrow into the tree and then they draw the target around it. So they go into the Old Testament, try to look for Hebrew, make it into numbers, turn the numbers into weird formulas, try to add the whole thing up and say, see, look, it means Jesus is our savior. It's just like, I bet if
wow.
How did you do that? Well, if I add all of these things up, divide it by 43, and then I add 7 to it, and then I do this other thing, it does this. And I'm like, where did you get all of those numbers? Well, Jesus. It's fun. So it's kind of I get a little bit of joy out of some of that gematria stuff.
There is a kind of a scene like that in the movie where
there is, very much so.
He's in the restaurant or in the coffee shop, and he's talking to Lenny, who is the Hasidic Jew, who's kind of trying to like.
He's part of the Hasidic mob group that we meet later.
Trying to bring him into the fold.
Right.
But
it's kind of feeling him out when we meet him.
Well, he starts up with kind of like a quick, talking about like Kabbalism or Kabbalism, and like Max is like, he's like, I'm Jewish, but I'm not religious. I was like, ooh, I feel you. He does this sequencing of numbers, explaining like how mother and father equal the same number as father or as man, and it becomes, and then it does the discussion of like the Garden of Eden and then the Tree of Life, and how that number is sequential to the Fibonacci sequences, and then those, of course, like are part of Pythagorean's theorem, or based off Pythagorean's theorem of like the divine math of like the golden ratio or the golden mean, or whatever you want to call it. Like it has many names.
Yeah.
The sacred spiral.
Yeah.
But, so this kind of this scenario kind of leads our character into his beginning of his own spiral. He is kind of being brought into these two worlds. He has these kind of Jewish mystics, mafia guys, and then he keeps receiving these phone calls going, "Hi, I'm Cheryl, wanting to meet with you. We talked about this date." And he's like, "No." And then she would call again. "Hi, it's Cheryl. I'm going to be in Chinatown at 3. How do you know where I live?" "Oh, I got your information from here's college."
Yeah.
And he's like, it's kind of spiraling him more and more. And he, like we were saying earlier, he's a kind of a recluse, and pretty antisocial for the most part. It seems like the only friends he has is his teacher, and he has a really, really kind neighbor named Debbie.
Yes.
Yes. Who is like, basically she tells him that he needs a mother.
And she kind of wants to mother him a little bit.
And what's kind of interesting about her is that, so some research on this, I found out that her name comes from a Hindu goddess named Devi, or I think Devi, a part of that name, Devi. And she is known for maternal behavior and mothering and
It seems very Aronofsky
I was like,
to
this
put
is
that in there.
so Aronofsky.
Yeah.
I mean, but just think this is like the beginning of what he's become now.
Right.
Right. Like honestly, this is, for me, this is one of his best works. I know people really like The Whale and people like Requiem for a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
No thanks.
I think Mother is a really good film.
I
and
do
we can
too.
talk more about that later.
It's
when
weird.
these-
But yeah. But I feel like this is, for me, will always stand in my heart as like Aronofsky's film. Anyways, he keeps receiving these phone calls from Cheryl, and we come to kind of find out she's a corporate liaison or works for some corporation that has a vestment in his ability to divine the stock market, because he is noticing this pattern, and he'll do print-ups every day and finds that he'll do like a predictability statistic based on what their sales were, and then discover that a company that is small, that has never had an uptick, suddenly has a boom. And so he's like, oh crap, I'm actually starting to see the pattern for real. This is real. And so somehow all of this is starting to kind of play in together, where the I guess it's also part of the spiral of the movie itself, which is kind of interesting to think about, is like how this was shot is in its own ratio too.
Yeah, and he's spiraling.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, more and more onto it. But yeah, so he ends up running across Cheryl and Chinatown, which was obviously not planned, but hers. And she was like, "Oh, we were supposed to meet," and he was like, "Supposed to," and she offers him a very tempting apple of knowledge, which is a chip that has the capacity to, at the time, translate a lot of data.
Right. Yeah. For the late 90s, it was like a
spook, and it's a spook chip.
Right, exactly. It was only like high-end government people had it. Wasn't declassified. Yep.
Yeah, those are things that even make that kind of drive the paranoia in this too. Is that there's these incidences that he keeps coming across that are creating the helping intensify the paranoia of the story. And let's see, lots more to go into.
Yeah.
The spiral continues.
Yeah. It's such a great setup with this, because you had kind of said something. For the most part, it is somewhat of a simple story. It's a person who has some physical and mental issues in their life. They're relatively shut in. They are hyper focused into this one thing that they are so obsessed over that they are committing their entire living space to this entire endeavor of trying to find a pattern, and even talking with their former professor, and their former professor was like, there's nothing there. Like, I've been here. I've done all of this stuff. I even had this little blip thing show up that you kind of think maybe you've seen this little blip and it ain't real. And it took me all the way down through my life and it's not there. Just give it up, because it's not going to get you anywhere. And that's the ride we're on. We don't really take any kind of detours outside of his few days of exploration. I'm not sure how much time we actually take up in all of this, but it feels like a short amount of time.
I don't think it's supposed to have a specific amount of time.
Right.
I think we're just kind of being brought on this journey, and we're watching this an unreliable narrator essentially kind of guide the story, because we are only getting Max's perspective.
Absolutely.
I mean, Aronofsky even made a point of shooting so tight on characters that look like you're looking at it from their perspective.
Yeah, and
so
I
you
wanted
don't
to
have like a third person view of that.
I wanted to talk about some of that when we leave the story aspect behind, and we talked, because there's a lot to talk about from the execution of this film. So I'm excited once we dive into that outside of the story aspects of this, because it's a great story. It's so good and so unique.
There's so many really thoughtful things. I mean, that Aronofsky does as a director to kind of move the story along and I know that because he actually wrote this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
with
so
the lead actor.
With the lead actor, and I feel like this feels so personal, and it feels so like these are people like you're like these are my friends. I mean, I knew people like this, obviously, and it there's so many thoughtful things like. He's got a cute little neighbor kid named Jenny, and
she's great.
She's kind of like his humanity, like his grasp of humanity, because he's always kind to her. He's never, even when he was feeling terrible, he's like, not now, but would still do it.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like represents this aspect of humanity for him by like asking him to rattle off numbers and then checking his math against a calculator.
Right, yeah.
Which is such a cool skill. What the heck? I wish I'm pretty good at math, but not to that level. Good gravy.
And for this kid, this was such a feat to
like
be
a
able to do.
magic trick.
You're right, simple arithmetic problems, but for her it was
number like math.
Right, yeah. And that's the thing is, what would be difficult or something that all of us would at least have to follow through with the formula. He could just see those numbers and put it all together.
1-8.
Yeah, he was able to see even the repetitions after a period on those.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was a decimal, not a period, but yeah, it was, and that was just a neat touch. There's such a fantastic understanding that these filmmakers had about story, because I don't know if he had short films prior to this. I don't remember. I think this was, I don't know that this was a first film a lot of people end up kind of making. But it's definitely a debut for a feature. And I'll tell you, and this is a kind of a thing for the audience too. I kind of watch myself and kind of keep my digging into the history or how a director came up, because I want to be in their shoes. And I start to get really, I don't know how they did it. And it's an industry of like, there is no path. Everyone's path is so different. And so I can't look at
random too.
I can't look at Aronofsky and go, well, he did all of these things and he did it his way and he had whatever access or money. And we can kind of talk about the budget and how they pulled all of this off. But it's like, he found his path. That was just the way. And so that's my long version of like, when I start looking into directors and I'm like, well, how come I can't figure it out? It's because I have to find my own path, and I haven't found my answer yet, but I get to comparing and it gets a little heavy on my heart sometimes because I don't know
what do they say?
What my path is.
Comparison is a thief of joy.
Yes, very much so. So there are aspects of Aronofsky's life that I didn't look into as far as any type of connections or prior films or anything like that. There was a disappointment one day when I looked into somebody and it was like, wow, they did this short film and they just like pitched it around and then they ended up getting a feature out of it. And then I did my digging a little bit farther and it was like, oh, that was because Sting and his wife paid for the short film and then gave it off to these people that they knew. This person had access to Sting. So it's like, okay, I can't keep looking because that's not my path until I meet Sting.
Hey, Sting.
Yeah.
If you're watching.
Yeah. But in spite of all of that, just such a great film. And I have to tell you, this was so good to watch again. Yeah. When I watched it the first time, I didn't know gematria at the time. I didn't know gematria at the time. There was just like a lot of things that I didn't know, and I don't even remember if I was filmmaking at the time. I think I watched this thing before I became a filmmaker, was working in film. And so it was kind of one of those where like it was an art house film and I was like, yeah, this is great and this is awesome.
Yeah,
this is kind of a fun story. And then I watch it again now and I'm like, man, I have robbed myself from not watching this thing like 10 times.
It's so freaking cool.
Yeah, it's really good.
I saw this movie at in there's an art house film play or like a theater in New Orleans that I saw this at. I was really lucky to see it that way. And then I saw it multiple times. Like when I go back to visit my friend in Memphis, I saw it there at also another art house, like back coffee shop type mixed place as it was in the late 90s, early aughts. And then before I moved to Portland. But I've watched it multiple times. Once, as soon as it came out on DVD, I bought it.
Yeah.
I think I still even have. I have multiple. Honestly, I think I have 4 versions of this movie. I have silly enough.
I think they did a remaster of this one, didn't they?
I had the DVD, like the old paper one, and like the one that was like, cardboard one.
Yeah.
That had the little plastic bit that closed the edge of the DVD.
Yeah.
I have that one. And then I have a steelbook version, and then I have the Blu-ray, and then I also have a digital, because who can be bothered to put their Blu-ray in? I mean, really.
Right.
So I'd love to have a VHS copy of it too.
Yeah.
Maybe if there's a laser disc out there, even though I'm a laser disc player, I love this film. It's part of my heart and soul. That's why I think I've got so much to say that I'm always catching myself up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's get back into the story of Max and all of that, where he's got the new chip and he's
I don't want
about
to go too far story-wise, because I mean, honestly, it's such a
don't want to ruin it for folks.
I think there's some really cool elements that we should discuss in the story. Like there are these subway scenes.
Yeah.
That is kind of part of our descent for Max. He sees somebody across the subway platform with their back turned to him, kind of dressed like Lenny, but then there's blood dripping out of the sleeve of his shirt, and then he turns and it's himself.
Yeah. And
these are usually like heralded by his like episodes of like having his migraines, essentially. Like I think that's the only way I can describe it, is like having a really terrible migraine. I've no experience with migraines, so I have no idea what I'm speaking on. I mean, this is kind of similar to narcolepsy in the sense of like there's flashes or something like that give you those little like reads or tells that something's about to be awry. So you have a little bit of warning. But yeah, there's these really cool scenes where he sees himself essentially, and you can read as much or as little as you want to in that. I would say that this was kind of him recognizing he was falling apart. And then there was this very cool scene where he's on the train and on the subway, and there is somebody singing I Only Have Eyes for You. And right before he gets to the I only have eyes for you part, he disappears.
Yeah.
And it's so strange. It's just these nuanced moments. Have you seen Jacob's Ladder, right?
Yes.
So this kind of reminds me of these absurd, like otherworldly moments that are kind of give us this, that kind of feed the mysticism or the magical or the supernatural element that is somewhat presented in this. Because I don't think that it's just, I mean, obviously, like there is the corporate part of it, but then there's also the mystical part of it. And I feel like these moments are those tells and reads into like the mystical aspects of it. Like, are these echoes of his brain? Is this pattern recognition happening? Because, pattern recognition is something that we all as human beings share, that we see patterns in things, whether it be something that resembles a human face to us, or is a divinity of numbers that we see as a sequence, and read those as like some people have like a time on the clock that they will see constant, that they will every time they go to look at the clock, it's 3:15 or something like that. I think these are those moments in this movie. He has, as I was saying earlier, it's all from his perspective. So we don't really ever get to know what is actually really happening. Like, is this all in his head?
Right.
Is these corporate people in his head? He has this complete meltdown because Euclid breaks down, which, by the way, having a computer named Euclid based on Euclidean geometry, I thought that was chef kisses. those little Aronofsky touches to things that
Yeah.
are just
There's
so thoughtful.
Yeah, there's a lot of smart aspects of this. I think this is a film that you can watch and take it for all of the surface level stuff that
Sure.
he deals out to you and be completely satisfied with it. But if you either just know a little bit more about aspects of religion or aspects of math, aspects of physical or mental conditions that people can have or that an individual might have. Like there's all of these things where if you just know a little bit more or you've spent even a lot of time with these
Right.
things, you start to see the nuance and the underpinning messages that he has
100%.
spread out in there I think that's what leads to the genius of this script and this story. And it means that you don't have to take detours. We don't have to get lost in any type of an attempted romance with the neighbor where somebody else would want to try to have
Yeah,
this
thank
person
God.
falls in love or does something, or we have to have a sex scene, or we have to do something like that. Something that has derailed hundreds of films that you and I have watched over the years because they just couldn't help themselves but have this B plot that
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything, that is just wasting our time. And this thing there's so much substance on the surface, but there's so much more substance just underneath that it is, every bite of this thing is satisfying. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way he makes films is such a, I keep saying the word thoughtful, but like he definitely takes into account what humanity, like having humanity, and as well as like being able to interpret that and be able to bring this kind of craft. I mean, I hate to be like so like giving such golden praise, but it's such a masterful craft. And as far as this story is concerned, there's a part where he's talking to his teacher, and his teacher tells him the parable of Archimedes.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that he uses that as a plot device, I thought was so smart, because he's basically being like, calm down, Max. Just, what did he say? He said the advice is to listen to your wife and take a bath.
Yeah.
But I think that's such a great way to kind of ground the character for a moment, for him to be like. But then we also find later, which is the annoying part, is that his teacher falls into it too. Mm-hmm. Like he brings him back in, because then he has that revolutionary moment where he's that bug. It makes sense, and it does predict an outcome. And he's like, now this is factual. Now that he's like, this is my evidence. And then that draws the teacher back into his own spiral, which we later discover causes health issues and has another stroke.
Right. Yeah. He ends up having a stroke and dying. It's his second one. So
our character kind of, after he kind of goes into another spiral, he starts to have another breakdown. His teacher having died, the chip is in his possession, and numbers are starting to happen, and people are pounding on the door, or he's not really knowing if they're pounding on the door. The Jewish mafia are after him. No, not really the Jewish mafia, but they're that hasidic order. Mm-hmm. They're after him to know the secrets of life, saying that he isn't worthy to know the secret language of God, because he's not pure of heart. And they are. Mm-hmm. Okay. I love the irony in that. And I think that's another thing that Aronofsky is like going like kind of like tongue in cheeking about, is like religion as well as like corporate, the capitalism in general. Mm-hmm. Like I think those are some subjects that he's definitely touching on, with making these two major entities kind of like the bad guys in this. Yeah. I mean, it's not a concise, clear-cut bad guy per se, but again, it's like this is all how Max perceives this.
Right.
And
you have people who are pursuing the wealth of the stock market, who gave him the chip, that are trying to get all of that because they want to control that.
And they want to control him.
And they want to control him. And then you have the religious people who believe that in controlling him and having that number, they issue in
a Messiah.
The Messiah. It's supposed to bring about the Messianic age that will bring about the third building of the temple. They will then understand it. And that would be, if they can get it, that signals that, then they are the ones who were chosen to usher this in.
So it's a very like apocalyptic and that apocryphal like feeling that's happening. And I see like, and you can see like Max like completely like falling to this, and where he, to the point of where you see this, there's a scene where all these locks are pounding on the door and he's screaming and he's like injecting himself over and over and over again with, by the way, that is not a real sub-Q injector. I just want everybody that was built for this movie because it's not a sub-Q injector. They do not look that, I mean, they're an air gun. The old ones were air guns, but they weren't that was made of some other things. And they put a sound effect on it because it was just wild looking.
Yeah, I figured the sound effect. That looked like the kind of bolt gun you'd find in a slaughterhouse. And I was like, holy cow, is that like...
Well, then, so like he does like try to like, he tries to sub-Q, like there's a section
on his
in his
temple,
head. Well, then he sees a line, like a spiral, so to speak, on his scalp in like a blood vessel. And that has kind of become this focus for him of like, this is where my ability to do this.
Center of my pain comes from, is what I took it as.
Center of my pain, and as well as my mathematical divinity. And so he tries shooting the sub-Q gun into it, and that was like horrifying to me because I use sub-Q injections, and they go in my tummy or my arm or something like that. But whew. That was made me grimace. And then he takes a drill and trepans himself. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's all we're going to tell you about the story. No, I'm just kidding. There's some beautiful ending. I think this movie like is basically a contrast of irreconcilable entities, essentially. Like with this religion and capitalism, and then we have his own perception and self-perception of madness / what is happening. I mean, is the pain real? I mean, it's all of the above, right? But I think the story is so fantastic. Even though even its simplicity, like on paper, you're like, it's about a guy going crazy who like sees numbers and but there's so much more to it, especially like if you love math, and especially if you love like paranoid math, I would say is how I would describe my friend. We would say is that he had a passion for paranoid math, and he definitely saw patterns and saw I don't want to say things that weren't there, but he saw things in life that were hard for the rest of us to perceive. Yeah. But thanks for watching this movie with me.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about the aspects of making this film.
Yes. Oh my gosh. There is a scene in the bodega that so nowadays this would be done with a GoPro on a headpiece or whatever, and we would have that perspective. But back then, I saw the making of, I don't know if you saw these pieces, but there was like a rig that they built that put the camera right here to give that like effect of him walking through the bodega.
Right.
I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, there weren't GoPros.
They called it like
cameras.
a snorri cam. Yeah.
I think when I was going back and watching this last night, I think this might be one of the first films or the first film that has that POV body strap camera effect to it. I've seen other films with it, and to be honest, in a lot of films I don't like it.
No.
And a lot of reality shows, they kind of do those same things to give people perspectives, and you're right. It's a lot of times it's GoPros and that kind of thing. They didn't have GoPros in there, but and watching this and then going back and looking, okay, this film came out in 98. They probably filmed it in like 96 or 97, and it's shot on film. And then I'm like, oh, that's not an easy task. And I actually think this might be the first, if it's not the first, it is definitely one of the first ever where people attempted to have that camera style on there. And it worked on this film. I liked it on this. I
Yeah.
don't like it in others, but I liked it on this when it worked.
I think that the reason why it works so well is that it doesn't, I think that they were able to do something that made it a little bit more stable. And so we have our character floating, essentially seeming like he's floating in, like as he's walking and the side of rushing by. But modern cameras that do that now bend this image.
They can when they try to go super wide.
Right,
yeah.
and this wasn't too bent. Like it was just
Yeah.
wide enough. And they said that was basically like the length of the aisle. And that wasn't, and there was
Yeah.
no, you didn't see that edging. It was all perfect, like straight on. So it had such an otherworldly like look to it. There
Yeah.
were so many scenes like that. I mean, the train scenes were like that. Gosh, I mean, if this had been in color, I don't think it would have been as successful.
No, not at all.
I think that the black and white aspects also play into the whole game
Yeah.
of Go that happens in the game or in the movie. There's it was very thoughtful to use black and white with light and darkness. The his vision being damaged from looking into the sun, him being Icarus.
Yeah.
There's so many smart things.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's very little gray gradient in here. It's not
No,
like it's
it's
black and
very,
white.
like,
yet.
it's
It's
not
almost
like
like a blown out.
You're right. It's not
Yeah.
like noir. It's not like how like Clerks was black and white.
Mm-hmm.
This is different. This is there because Clerks had a lot of shades of gray and a lot of gradient.
Right.
This is very blown out.
Yeah.
But cool and kind of punk rock in a lot of ways.
Yeah, very much. I think that leads to very much a feeling because Max is our narrator throughout this whole thing. I don't think there is ever a scene that doesn't have Max in it. We never depart from Max.
No, it's all his
to
perspective.
To ever see anybody else's story developing around there that is in contrast to him. We're always with Max. So having this very blown out highlights area, then very dark, everything is like it kind of makes a distinction between light and dark.
Yes.
Light and dark. We're always in a light and dark. We're really never in a place where it's like, this is kind of a gray situation. Everything,
Absolutely.
especially for him, how he's kind of deciding things. And even if he has some trepidation around some people or some hesitation around things, we're seeing the starkness between those separations of light and dark. Excellent presentation for it. Plus, it means you don't have to go through and color grade and match your shots. You know,
And it also hides things.
It
right?
does.
So, like, I think that supercomputer that the Euclid.
oh yeah, if you had to see Euclid in color properly lit, like it would not be
probably
good.
not a good look.
Right, yeah. If you were to do it today, you would have to have things really turned down in your light, but then you would have like little LEDs hidden in the computer or something like that. So you would kind of have these little pops of light around here and there. So yeah, the way it's done is beautiful. It's kind of, it's perfectly done. And especially, if you don't mind talking about kind of the budget and the guerrilla aspects of this, done for $60,000,
Yeah.
mostly money borrowed from friends and family.
Right? Like somebody's mom did craft services.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But even at $60,000 in 96, 97, filming it in that area, they're still filming in New York. There's like two named actors that are in there. The guy who plays Saul is a named actor. Like he is a known entity.
Cohen.
Well, there's not Father Cohen. There's Rabbi Cohen, who is also in there, who is a known actor. So these are like two established.
Oh, that's Mark
folks.
Margolis, by the way. Saul.
Yes,
Robeson.
Saul, who's been in a ton of
Right.
things. So, they either had a relationship with him or the story was such that he was willing to come in and be a part of that for what little price they had. But they had no permits. They got nothing. Like all of that stuff that they shot down in the subway, both on the trains and on all the platforms and everything. No permits, no okays, no nothing.
No,
they had a
it was
lookout.
A little bit of guerrilla filmmaking.
Not a little, it's
Milad.
all. Yeah, they had it was like camera,
Where the
sound,
scenes where
the
everybody's looking at
actors.
Max, where he's thinking that people are looking at him.
Right.
That's people looking
That's all
at them.
people look at him. They're just out there in the street. Yeah, they got no permits and no permission. It would have, I guess the estimate was it would have been like $18,000 if they'd had to shoot all of the scenes that they had in the subway system to be able to do it. And they just like, nope, they just showed up, and their lookout would just, cops are coming, and everybody would like tuck everything away, and they would just sit there quietly, and then they would pop everything back out and start filming again. If security or cops were coming by, they just guerrillaed the whole thing. And, you know, even with that, and again, this is why I said I haven't done that deep dive. I don't know what his either family or business relationships were with either certain locations or certain people, like the person who played Saul and all that, because I feel like, so we're not very far away from the DSLR revolution when this film comes out. So it comes out in 98. 10 years later, the DSLR revolution starts to happen, where people are shooting on digital camera bodies, but they have the ability to record video. And then a lot of things start to change. People start to use still photography lenses that are secondhand to put on these camera bodies to start shooting, and editing software is getting cheaper, almost free. And so there's this democratization, and the world starts to get flooded by YouTube and all of that. But there was still this place where if you had $60,000 and you did an indie film and you did it competently, and then you worked to get it into the hands of the right place, like you could start your career that way. And I feel like this is like ushering in the beginning of that end.
Getting this film sold to Artisan was probably like what made this happen for him.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like if this film had just been like, oh, won a Sundance Award and peace. There's so many of those, unfortunately, that don't get picked up by big distribution. But Artisan at the time was still real big.
Yeah.
Was still I don't even know if they're still around the way they are now. I mean, are they?
I'm not sure if they're still around
There
as
might
they
be a
were.
subsidiary company of somebody else, I feel like, at this point.
Probably.
But, if anything. But, I mean, getting picked up by Artisan is what kind of helped make it. And I think they also were proposing or did a graphic novel with Dark Horse.
Yeah.
Which is actually this little layout here that
Yeah.
I have. It's from my Valentine gave me production notes and all of these beautiful like stills pictures from behind the scenes at the film, of making of the film, and all of the proposal for the comic for Dark Horse, as well as like a fun few sheets of pie.
Nice.
Like typed out. That's like 4.16, and then the continuing numbers.
Oh, 3.141592.
Yeah. Like, but it's 2 pages of it.
Yeah.
That is in here in this production.
Nice.
And it's such a cool, like, little, and it came with this pen. So this pen is like 1 million years old as well. This is such a cool little like time capsule of stuff we don't do anymore.
It's a great press kit.
The press kit is cool. It's pretty cool press kit.
Nice.
But thanks, Valentine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great gift. It's just great to see, you know, some of the aspects of how they made this film. And, you know, again, $60,000 they made this thing for. And then you see the press picture here with them with their big film camera that they have, and the big film canisters and all of that. And it's like, how little did all of these folks work for to be able to afford that piece of camera, or did they know somebody? Yeah, it's
I'm going to take pictures of it for our Instagram, for those who look at our Instagram, so that way you can kind of see these, because there are some really cool perspective shots that you can tell that the camera is like right here, like they're shooting from behind his shoulder, so that we're seeing in Max's perspective. So cool. Yeah. So cool.
This was an awesome film. Nice pick.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun. It's kind of bittersweet for me to talk about it, but it's a film I usually pick horror films, and I guess in this way it is a science fiction, horror, thriller, all of the above kind of movie. But yeah, it's very near and dear to my heart. I hope I did it justice, and it's a good one. Thanks for watching it and talking about it with me.
My pleasure. I'll watch it and talk about any of these films with you. It's great. But then we got the next one.
What's our next film, Martin? It's
our
your
next
pick.
film. It is my pick, and it is a film I've never seen before.
I've never seen this before.
It's a recommended film, so we're gonna tread into unknown territory on this one, and I can't say that I've necessarily been a fan of this director's stuff, but I have been told that this is a beautiful film to watch and see. It's got a very young, early Lee Pace starring in it. This is the Tarsim Singh 2006 film, The Fall.
Oh, I've heard this is gorgeous.
Yeah, I have heard the same. So it's an experiment. Hopefully not the same along the lines of Uncle Boon Me. We'll see. It could be. But this is good about like spreading out and seeing other stuff.
Yes.
And most of the things we've kind of done, we've had you've seen it or I've seen it. Both of us have seen it and we're revisiting. It's something like that. So this one is this is literally uncharted territory. So we'll see what it does.
All right.
Cool. Well, Gretchen, thank you so much for having this film and doing this with me.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. See you next time.